Okay, very good.
Wonderful. And okay, fantastic. Before I call this meeting to order, I also wanted to make a statement, and Chairman Leon, I know that you had given us an opportunity throughout the full commission meeting. I did want to make this statement, though, personally. As we witness the civil unrest and anger across America for the brutality and despicable taking of African-American lives, I personally want to express my support for our Black communities and condemn racism, police brutality, systematic injustice, and violence in the strongest possible terms. I hope the members of this committee with me in solidarity with Black Lives Matters and Mayor Lightfoot as we all work towards an equitable future. I would, and any other committee members who would like to make a statement, you could feel free to do that either now or you could do it towards the end as well. So I'm going to call this meeting to order and do a roll call. Commissioner Aguirre.
Here.
Commissioner Ostman. Commissioner Ostman. Commissioner Jekovich.
Here.
Commissioner Hughes.
Present.
And I'll go back. Commissioner Ostman, you're there.
Yes, here.
Okay, thank you. And I am Commissioner Wong. We do have a quorum. First, as many of you know, we are able to have virtual meetings due to the governor's suspension of certain portions of the Open Meetings Act. As you may also know, the General Assembly has recently passed a bill to amend the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during this COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that Raphael Leon, as head of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, determined that an in-person meeting of the Permit Review Committee of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks is not practical or prudent. At this time, I do not believe that the amendments to the Open Meetings Act have been signed into law, but in the event I am mistaken about this, I want to make sure our virtual meeting meets all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, in the event the governor has signed Senate Bill 2135 into law, Chairman Leon has made a determination pursuant to the newly created Section 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act that an in-person meeting of this Permit Review Committee of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks is not practical or prudent. Second, pursuant to an ordinance adopted by the Chicago City Council on April 24th, 2020, in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, Raphael Leon, chairman of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and provisions for remote public participation, which were posted on the commission's website. In line with these emergency rules, today's regular meeting of the Permit Review Committee is a virtual meeting being simulcast to the general public via live streaming. This is the second time a Permit Review Committee meeting has been held virtually. The meeting has been structured to minimize chances for technical difficulties. Members of the general public were encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and these have been posted on the Commission's website. These members of the public desiring to speak at today's meetings were required to register before the meeting, and verbal statements by the public for all agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting. Applicants and their representatives, as well as aldermen, were required to contact staff if they desire to speak, and they will be able to do so after the staff presentation on a specific project. At this time, all those who were provided instructions regarding how to speak at today's virtual meeting should follow them and be ready to speak. And I'll call upon you at the appropriate time. People have registered to speak on 3 agenda items, and we will now hear their statements. I'll call out agenda items and the names of the persons who have requested to speak. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding agenda item number 1, the project at 2618 North Milwaukee, one person has registered to speak, Ward Miller. So, Mr. Miller, if we could hear from you, please.
Can you hear me, commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so Ward Miller, I'm Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. Regarding 2816 North Milwaukee Avenue in Chicago, Chicago's Logan Square community, we at Preservation Chicago very much support the reuse of this building on Logan Square proper, which overlooks the monument and, is considered one of Chicago's most important outdoor rooms along the Boulevard system. I also want to mention that I'm a member of Logan Square Preservation. I'm not speaking on behalf of them, but I'm a Logan Square resident living on the Boulevard and was instrumental in getting the Logan Boulevards Landmark District along with other community members passed back in 2005. However, we do have some concerns about a lot of the details of the building, which was, I believe, forwarded to all of you commissioners by a member of Logan Square Preservation, Barnaby Waters, expressing concerns about the elevator tower and the massing of a proposed masonry addition to the top. And I'd also like to mention that there's something that's really important that's oftentimes overlooked, and that is this is a pavilion, a glass pavilion, an L station entry with an English crossbond wall that was designed by Myron Goldsmith of Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. And this is an important component tying back to Mies van der Rohe's studies at IIT for a courtyard house. And this has sort of been overlooked. The building and the English crossbond wall really should be restored as part of this development rather than partially removed. This is really an important component of the landmark district, even though it's a non-contributing building because it was built in the period of 1968 to 1970. However, every time CTA does work to this station, it's done in a heavy-handed way, which impacts its overall design and whittles away the original vision of Goldsmith and SOM and even the hand of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe and his students. So we want to encourage preservation of and restoration of that L station, retention of the wall, which you see removed for additional storefronts placed in there. And we think these are components that are all important to the district and really create a lovely condition. As of course you know, the original south face of this building was not meant to face the square, but demolition for the subway system exposed this wall. We very much support the rethinking of that south wall with windows and this great fenestration. Other than that, and the concerns expressed by Logan Square Preservation, we are okay to go with that, accepting that the L station would also be improved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Your timing is impeccable. No one has registered to speak on agenda items number 2 or 3. Regarding agenda item number 4, the project at 315 East 35th, 2 people have registered to speak. So Jeremy Bryant, if we could hear from you, please. Mr. Bryant.
Mr. Bryan, you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all. I appreciate you all giving me your time and attention to this matter. It's unfortunate that the entire facade of this building has been removed and discarded before it was able to be evaluated properly. However, I do appreciate the support of the aldermen, landmark staff, Preservation Chicago, Ward Miller, Landmark Illinois, Lisa DiChiera, for reaching out and helping us get this project back on track. We have met, when I say we, the Gap Community Organization, our housing committee, have met with the owner and the architect of this building and have been working with staff in order to reconstruct the facade in a way that preserves its appearance in the late 1950s. We've provided photographs to staff as well as the owner and his architect. The renderings that we were provided with are good. However, they lack details that we were hoping to have nailed down or pinned down. For example, one of the window openings, it only shows 3 double hung windows, but we're hoping to have that changed to where it reflects 4 as it does in the rendering of the drawing or the photo from the 1950s. The other item of concern is making sure that the Roman brick that is along the first floor on the storefront is matched to what was there before. It was a bricks laid out in a horizontal pattern. Some were flush and some protruded. And the samples that we provided with have not really meet the mark that we were expecting them to meet. And so we want to continue working with staff as well as the owner to make sure that we get this building back looking like it did in the 1950s. This building is not only important to the Black Metropolis District itself, but also a cornerstone on 35th Street, which we are desperately trying to revitalize and bring back so that it reflects not only just what it once was, but also as a sort of a catalyst for the community and what we're trying to do, or the look that we're trying to bring back to this district. So we thank you for your time. We hope that our suggestions have been noted, and we continue to work with the architect, the owner, and staff to make sure that this project is something that we're all proud of.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Mr. Miller, you're back on for this.
We very much support this legacy building that's part of the Black Metropolis District as well. And we've been working with Jeremy Bryant, who you just heard from. This is a remarkable building. It's just one of a handful of buildings in the Bronzeville Black Metropolis District of Chicago. And it's so very, very important that this building be restored accurately. And I think we have the same concerns that Jeremy Bryant had about the detailing of the facade. This is the old Sunset Cafe, and you know every music legend of that sort of jazz era played at this location, and there are beautiful murals inside that have been that were left uncovered and perhaps are perhaps more visible now with the work being done. But this was done without a permit, and it took a lot of effort for us all working together, calling the city, sending emails, and it is a little frustrating at times, but I hope we get to a good place where we can see a building that's truly restored back to its high point in that sort of jazz era Chicago, which is just so critical to this small district of buildings. So we have few landmarks of this nature, so it's really important that it be done right. And just want to encourage that the landmark staff and all of you commissioners involved continue this great effort to improve this building's facade, which has been altered over time, but was literally removed in a harsh way and without all the right permits and without all the right exceptions and review that is usually given to landmark buildings in Chicago. So we again want to just emphasize how important it is to get it right and to get it right for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Nobody is requested to speak on agenda items number 5, number 6, number 7, or number 8. Regarding agenda item number 9, the project at 560 West Fullerton, one person is registered to speak. Mr. Miller, you're on again.
Thank you, commissioners. Once again, for the record, Ward Miller, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. We're very excited about the possibilities for 560 West Fullerton. And it's, of course, very hard speaking in advance of the presentation as to what may have been suggested since our last meeting. But we would leave that up to you as commissioners, of course, to determine whether garage entry is an appropriate function on Geneva Terrace. And I would defer to the community and to the alderman on this issue. And we've not been able to speak to her, but I think it's really important that perhaps first and foremost, that this building, which has suffered a lot of adaptations with, fake stone applied to its facade, some of it partially still remaining, windows bricked in, the bay on Geneva's Terrace that extended up the side of the building was removed and windows and fenestration changed. It would really be wonderful to first and foremost see these improvements made to this building, which is a remarkable house on a remarkable street on a remarkable corner. But, I've lived in this vicinity for a long time, have passed this building for more than 50 years. And I have to tell you, it would be wonderful to see true investment in this building happen and a restoration of its facade. And I think that's critical, and it hasn't received that attention in a very long time. And this has been a landmark or part of the Mid-North Landmark District for more than 40 years. So I really want to encourage the owner, the city, the Landmarks Commission, and staff at DPD, Historic Preservation Division, to reinvest, to sit down and talk about this and really make the facade improvements a priority, because it really has been sort of an eyesore for a long time. It's beautiful in its shape, its form, some of its detailing, but this really does need attention, and it needs attention quickly. And it'd be great to see this done even before the garage door is considered as an idea. So I want to just thank the commission and the Permit Review Committee for looking at this very complex situation, considering the owner and the garbage cans that are currently on Geneva Terrace, but really pushing, if you will, for a restoration of this important building's facade as part of the Fullerton Street wall in this remarkable Mid-North District. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. That is all of the speakers that signed up to speak for the commission meeting. I've also received statements from members of the public who do not wish to speak. Comments from the following people have been posted on the commission's website, from Andrew Schneider of Logan Square Preservation and Barnaby Waters. We will now go through the agenda. First thing on the agenda are the approval of minutes from the previous meeting, the regular meeting of May 7th, 2020. If there is there any discussion regarding these minutes? Having none, I'd like to call for a motion to approve these minutes.
So move.
Approved by motion by
Second.
Commissioner Aguirre and second by Commissioner Hughes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries unanimously. The first, we have a number of projects on the agenda today, 9 of them. So we'll try to take these as they come. The first project is located in the Logan Square Boulevards district at 2618 North Milwaukee. You will remember this from, no, sorry, wrong one. This is a proposed exterior and interior alterations of existing building into a hotel, including new masonry, new storefronts, new window openings on the east and south facades, and a new rooftop addition and roof deck. And Emily, if you could let us know what's going on here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so the 5-story building at 2616 to 18 North Milwaukee was built in 1914 as a storage warehouse. Due to the nature of the original use as a storage facility, the primary facade along Milwaukee is mostly a solid wall with 8 small windows. The commission has reviewed multiple proposals for this in the past. The building was preliminarily found to be non-contributing to the Logan Square Boulevards district in June 2007. Clearly, none of the previous proposals ever moved forward, and the building has been vacant for years. The current applicant purchased the property within the last few years with the intent of turning it into a hotel.
If I could interrupt, is there a way to get this to full screen, the presentation? The screen is, or at least my screen seems to be split in half.
Chairman, you from up top, you have to say view options and say zoom ratio and fit to window.
Okay, thank you.
So because of lot line windows and storefronts, the project will require use of the southern adjacent lot. The property is city-owned and was obtained for the CTA Blue Line station. The applicant has been working with CDOT to open the lot as a public right-of-way. The process needs to be approved by City Council, but once it's completed, there will be no need for an easement. So as I mentioned, this building is on the northern boundary of the Logan Square Boulevards district because the building is highly visible from Logan Square itself, as you can see from the map. The designation ordinance for the Logan Square Boulevards district specifies that the district is a distinctive and remarkably intact group of single-family houses, small flat buildings, larger apartment buildings, and small-scale commercial, institutional, and religious buildings built between 1880 and 1930. Because it was originally a storage facility, the primary facade along Milwaukee, as well as the side facade, are both primarily solid masonry walls. The side facade was previously common brick with no openings or ornamentation, but was demolished, as you can see in the photo, down to structure because of imminently dangerous and hazardous conditions. So it's currently just structural frame with plywood infill. Considering the limitations on future uses of the subject property, the unique building typology, and the small size of the existing windows, the building was preliminarily categorized as non-contributing. In previous review, the commission has found the building to be preliminarily non-contributing. Staff recommends that the committee reaffirm the determination that it is non-contributing to the character of the Logan Square Boulevards district. So in order to function as a hotel, the project proposes to introduce 37 new window openings with approximately 62 new windows. Each structural bay will have 2 windows on each floor separated by a brick pier to increase the proportion of masonry on the overall facade. The 5th and 6th floors of the building will be used as event space. The windows will be similarly sized to those found on floors 2 through 4, but are slightly simplified in design. The first floor storefronts on the Milwaukee Avenue facade of the building have been boarded up since 2013, and there have been multiple alterations to this area in the past. The applicant is proposing a traditional retail storefront configuration as seen elsewhere in the district, and the original ornamental terracotta facade that you can see there is proposed to be repaired in place. The applicant is also proposing to introduce storefronts to the south elevation, 1 in each structural bay. Next. So the applicant is proposing to fully remove the existing masonry above the terracotta storefront on the front facade and rebuild with new standard modular brick matching the historic color. This wall is in poor condition and requires rebuilding. A report by a licensed structural engineer addressing the proposed demolition and construction relative to how the remaining structure should be braced and protected during the proposed demolition of the north facade and reconstruction of the south facade. This should be submitted to historic preservation staff. It should also incorporate the recommended measures, sequencing, and protections for the building. Historic photos of the property show a tall cornice with some banding framing the facade. While the cornice is no longer there, elements of the terracotta border remain. Staff recommends that the borders framing the facade shall be retained if possible or replaced to match, and the cornice width and projection be revisited to to Ben used to have a rooftop penthouse of generally the same height as the proposed addition, removed when the south elevation was demolished. The applicant is also proposing a roof deck. Look, go back. The applicant is also proposing a roof deck extending the majority of the remainder of the 5th floor roof. A portion of the metal structure that was originally used to support a rooftop billboard is proposed to be retained as a roof trellis. However, the actual billboard sign will be removed. Staff recommends approval in concept with enlarged plans to be submitted with permit application. There's also just a rear vertical circulation tower you can see behind the building. It's proposed to be clad in standard modular brick. It'll be visible, but is compatible with the existing heights in the district. Staff feels it's the best possible location for the required egress elements and recommend approval. So that said, staff recommends the committee reaffirm that the building is indeed non-contributing and approve with the conditions, I think all of which I have gone over. Letters of support were received from Logan Square Preservation and the Alderman's office.
Thank you, Emily. Does the committee have any questions of Emily at this time? Any questions regarding the, you said the applicant was here?
Yes, the applicant's attorney is here, but I believe also the owner and architect.
Okay, great. Would like to hear from them. If you guys would like to.
I believe I'm here, Mr. Chairman, and I believe
All
my
right.
mic is on.
Rolando, your mic is on. Correct. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Rolando Acosta, I am the attorney for the applicant. Here with me today is Tyler Quast, who represents the applicant, and Matt Kupritz from K2 Studio, who is the architect for this project. It is truly a pleasure to be here, particularly for me because we're ending a 5-year odyssey on trying to revitalize this building. This building has been in the same ownership, and I should just correct something Emily said. It's technically owned by the Martinez family in a limited liability company. The representative of that limited liability company is Grace Martinez. You'll recognize the name Grace because that is why the blade sign says Grace's Furniture. It is leased, essentially master leased, to the applicant, and we're proceeding with the full consent and support of the Martinez family and Grace. She unfortunately could not be here today. But this is 5 years. I have spent 5 years trying to get all of the approvals and move forward a development for this building that has probably been vacant at this point for at least 10, if not 15 years. It has gone through a very tortured history. I will tell you that Blue Star Properties is the second developer for this property. It is also, and Matt is the third architect in the 5 years. Some may recall this building because it was the subject of a lawsuit between a tenant who had control of the facades for purposes of signage. So there were 2 large billboards on that east facade, and there was another billboard on the top. Permits were denied to that tenant, unrelated to us whatsoever. Lawsuits ensued. The matter was appealed. Actually, and in this 5-year process, we also settled that because we basically bought out that particular tenant's interest so that we can end the long-standing dispute and make this come to fruition. Obviously, the billboards were removed. The one on the rooftop will be removed, but as Emily said, the structure will be retained, reused in place, so it provides basically a trellis on the roof. Blue Star Properties, some may recognize because among their many great projects in the city, they were the organization behind the restoration and revitalization of Thalia Hall down in Pilsen, which is a beautiful landmark in the city of Chicago. They, apropos to Chairman Leone's statements earlier and Chairman Wong's statement today, I mean, they are very in tune with the neighborhood and try to do projects that are consistent with the neighborhood, not only physically, but also in terms of the society and the residents of that neighborhood. Their first action on this project was to execute a community agreement, assuring the aldermen and local community organizations that they would make their best efforts to hire as many individuals from this neighborhood to work in this project and to pay a living wage to those individuals. So we started out sort of with the social justice mode. We proceeded to a very large community meeting attended by over 100 people that expressed support for this project. We've now rezoned the property. We have secured vacation of the alley to the south of the properties where the stair tower would go. We then engaged in about a year-long journey to establish the ownership of the parcel to the east. Emily mentioned it earlier, referring to the easement or now dedication as part of the Boulevard system of the property that on which currently is located the CTA entrance, the city sidewalk, bicycle racks, and a park, paseo, garden in the neighborhood. All of this property, no one really knew who owned it, and we went through considerable efforts to establish it. It's actually owned by the city of Chicago, and then had been working with CDOT and the remainder of the city departments to secure that it become part of the Boulevard, as it's part of the planned future realignment of Kedzie, and would provide green space as well as some of the access to the CTA. So it's been a very long journey. Hopefully coming near an end. We do need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a final approval, and then we will be well on our way. The project before you does have the support of the Logan Square Preservation Group. I heard Mr. Miller's comments earlier. I understand we've tried very hard for 5 years to please everyone, but no one can ever please everyone. But in terms of Logan Square preservation, we do have their support. I do know that the alderman has forwarded a letter of support with respect to this project to Chairman Leon. We have reviewed the commission's report and recommendations, and quite frankly, we don't have any disagreement with any of those items, other than we have with item number 4, which is the frame border at the front. As you could see from the image that Emily put up initially in her presentation, to retain that existing border, the vertical element of it, impairs the windows, which are critical when this is a hotel use. Originally, we have discussed this over the years many times, and we had, our understanding was that the upper floors, and Emily, I don't know if you want to go to the image at the beginning or be on this one, but either one is fine with me. Our understanding was that the upper floors of the building facades would implement a more modern approach, really because of the reuse, the warehouse nature of this building, and also because of the adjacent CTA structure, which is really more modern Miesian in design, as I understand from Mr. Miller. The project's a non-contributing building was discussed, and so it was decided it was conducive for this approach. To put these back, we think begins to clutter this facade, even at a smaller, even if it's at a narrower width. We are restoring the cornice line above, we're restoring the cornice line below. We now have windows that will be there. Obviously, we're restoring the Grace Furniture sign. I think it's kind of an iconic sign in that neighborhood. So that's the only condition where we would prefer not to have to meet, to say it perhaps more directly. Otherwise, we're very pleased. We have to compliment the staff. I have to compliment the staff because they've been putting up with the various proposals by my clients over the 5 years and reviewing them and providing comments. And I have to congratulate my client on their incredible outreach to the neighborhood and their efforts to try to accommodate every single comment that has been made. With that, Mr. Chairman, we were happy to stand for questions or clarify any aspect of this.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. Does the committee have any questions of Mr. Acosta right now? Of the applicant? Commissioner Gary.
Thank you. I just have a quick question out of curiosity. What type of hotel is it? Is it boutique? Is it just curious about the nature of it?
So-
But otherwise, can you hold on? Otherwise, I want to compliment the investment. I think a lot of the structures that were modified up on CTA are, we need to advocate for transit-oriented development. And I think hotel uses and community scale, it's really exciting. But I was just curious about the nature of, like, who's the audience for the hotel?
It's envisioned as a boutique hotel. The same ownership also owns Longman and Eagle, which is a restaurant and bed and breakfast in the neighborhood. So it's a smaller hotel that I believe they're envisioning operating on their own auspices. Perhaps if Tyler wants to add to that, he can feel free.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's a boutique hotel concept. We don't have a flag. We're considering actually operating ourselves, similar to what we've done across the street. And we're still working through the details on that. There'll be a food and beverage opportunity there as well as something that we'll be involved in, and then event space on the top of the building as well.
Commissioner Aguirre, that answered your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hughes.
Hi. I guess my question was pertaining to the discrepancy with number 4. I wanted to ask the staff what was the thought process behind coming up with the decision for number 4, especially if we're considering this non-contributing.
So being considered non-contributing, it really gets reviewed under our new construction and alterations to non-contributing buildings guidelines. So we take a look for compatibility. It's great that they're taking cues from the CTA station. It's really not a part of the district in the sense that it was just much later and a much different style than the remainder of the district. So it's something that we would ask on a lot of new construction projects as well. It's just the introduction of a cornice as is typical in the district.
Commissioner Hughes.
Thanks, Emily.
Okay, great. Does the committee, anybody else? I don't see any more hands. Mr. Costa, I just wanted to clarify this in terms of ownership is still by the family, but it's a long-term lease to
Yes.
the developer.
That's correct.
And the developer is going to own or operate this new facility, do the work and operate the facility.
That is correct.
Okay, just wanted to be clear about that. All right. Okay, well.
May I say something on
Yes,
the
go ahead.
committee member's question regarding the facade? I just want to clarify. The cornice line on top and on bottom, we are retaining. And by the way, I apologize if I'm not using the correct technical architectural term. I suffer from
You're
being
fine.
a lawyer, not an architect. But so it's not the cornice line on top nor the cornice line on the bottom above the storefront. It's actually the 2 vertical lines on the side.
Yeah, that's what I thought I saw in the image, and that is a great compromise from you guys, not removing the cornice altogether. So I just wanted to get clarification on our decision to put that in our requirements for you guys. But I do think that was a good compromise.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Just to quickly clarify, so part of that condition would be to extend both the projection and the length of the cornice that they are proposing right now.
So I'm sorry, and so I should clarify, Emily, because you're correct. In terms of the cornice lines, we have no objection. In terms of the vertical projection part of that statement, that's where we have the objection.
Okay,
So essentially, we're accepting half the statement, I'll call it.
gotcha. That's great. Thank you.
I think that's clear. Commissioner Osman.
Yeah, just looking at that, as I go back and look in the original presentation that we received, and I look at those windows, I mean, I'm trying to understand staff's decision to go for that vertical element, because we have such a wonderful gridded wall that is very much in proportion. And so I'm just trying to understand the proportion that we're dealing with in terms of the way the windows are laid out versus trying to squeeze in a vertical element. So could you try to explain to me? I'm trying to understand the usage of the building versus the ideal versus the real, I guess is where I'm coming from.
Yeah, so that is something, I mean, obviously as a non-contributing building, it's not being treated the same as it would be if it were contributing. We like the idea of a border remaining. It's you know, it kind of harkens back to what was originally there. Again, very flexible on the width of that border, but just as a nice frame.
Commissioner Osmond, does that answer your question regarding the thought process?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you have before you, and if there are no more comments by the applicant or committee members, you have before you the staff recommendations for this property. If there's no further discussion, then I'd like to call for a motion to accept the staff recommendations.
Actually, I motion for us to accept the compromise for number 4 listed in our staff recommendations and to accept the rest of the list.
I second that compromise.
Okay. There's a motion on the table. I'll do a roll call for this. Commissioner Jekovich.
I accept that motion.
Commissioner Aguirre.
I support that motion.
Commissioner Osman. You
Seconded and I support.
Yeah, seconded. And Commissioner Hughes, you made them. And I also agree with that motion as well. So it's unanimous to accept the motion as presented by Commissioner Hughes. And hope everybody's happy with that.
Thank you.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Have a great, safe
All right.
day and rest of the week.
Thank you, Rolando. Appreciate that.
Take care.
The next property or the next item on the agenda is a property located at 9822 South Longwood in the Longwood Drive District. This is a proposed rear additions to a 3-story masonry residence, a new curb cut and driveway configuration, demolition of an existing rear 1-story masonry garage, and construction of a new 1.5-story rear masonry garage. And Larry, I think you're on for this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see if we can get that up and running. There it is. The Longwood Drive District was designated a Chicago landmark in 1981 and includes a rich mixture of building styles popular from 1870s through the 1930s. Much of the district is located along a high ridge with substantial setbacks to Longwood Drive. The building at 9822 South Longwood was designed in the classical revival style and constructed in 1911. As you mentioned, the applicants proposed to remove an existing addition at the rear of the property and construct a new 2-story rear addition no taller or wider than the existing building. This rear addition also includes 2 1-story porches. The one on the south aligns with an existing porch. They're proposing to construct a new semicircular driveway, which requires a new curb cut on Longwood Drive. They're also proposing to demolish an existing 1-story rear garage and construct a new 1.5-story rear garage. As noted in the commission's guidelines regarding curb cuts, they are not acceptable in historic districts where curb cuts are not characteristic of the original development. In the case of Longwood Drive, which includes many single-family homes on large lots with substantial yards and setbacks, this area was subdivided without alleys, and curb cuts and driveways are indeed a part of the original pattern of development in the district. The subject property has 100 feet of frontage along Longwood Drive, and the lot is 237 feet deep. There is one existing curb cut on Longwood Drive near the south property line, and the applicant proposes to construct another curb cut near the north property line to accommodate a new 10-foot wide semicircular drive. This driveway will be flanked by stone retaining walls to accommodate the change in grade. So semicircular driveways are not very common in Longwood Drive district, but the applicant did identify two existing examples, one at a mid-block property at 10631 South Sealy, and another at a corner property at 10540 South Longwood. In both cases, these homes are located on large lots, similar to the subject lot, and there's a substantial separation between these curb cuts. So staff is recommending that the proposed curb cut will not have an adverse effect on the architectural and historic character of this district or the property. So, as I mentioned, they are really looking to remove a rear addition and replace it with a new two-story addition. They're not really touching the front of the building. In the rendering on the lower left, you can see the projecting one-story porch on the south side of the building, again, aligning with an existing porch closer to the front of that property. Let's go to the next one. Here's the side elevation. Again, you can see the removal of that rear portion and its replacement with a larger rear addition. And you can also see their proposed new 1.5-story garage. And just for good measure, let's go to the next slide and see everything from the other side. Again, same things. Let's go to the next slide. And this is existing conditions on the rear of the property where that new addition is proposed to be located. So as I mentioned, the applicant is proposing to demolish an existing one-story masonry garage and replace it with a larger 1.5-story masonry garage. The new garage incorporates a mansard roof and dormer design, which is similar to the main residence. And the height of that garage is about 18 feet. There are 3 individual garage bays separated by masonry piers, and it's intended that that garage will utilize brick matching that of the main residence, just as the intent is for that rear addition. Only a portion of the garage will be visible from the front property line. The applicant maintains that the existing one-story, 2-car masonry garage cannot be reused due to the expansion of the home and the required turning radius of the redesigned auto court. To better assist us in evaluating the current garage, the applicant did provide a photographic survey of existing garages visible from the right-of-way on Longwood Drive, and that survey was included in your packet. So based on the 1914 Sanborn Fire Insurance maps, the garage is likely to be original to the home. However, the designation report does not specifically mention coach houses or garages, but primarily describes the architectural characteristics of the homes within the district. The existing garage is a modest structure and is substantially set back on the lot and is only partially visible from the public right-of-way. Unlike some coach houses or historic attached garages, it is not clearly incorporated into the design of the home. Staff therefore recommends the demolition of the garage, and the construction of a new garage as proposed also would not adversely impact the architectural character of that building. We've got one more slide that kind of shows the existing conditions of that garage, and you can see that it just kind of peeks out from behind the back of the home, and it's really only slightly visible from the right-of-way. So we are recommending approval with a couple of minor conditions. One is that the driveway be constructed no wider than required. And 2 is that the rear additions and detached garages, that the applicant provides us with material samples for review prior to order and installation. I do want to mention that the alderman and the community group have reviewed this proposal, but we have not received any letters from them. I believe the applicants are here if you have questions for them, but if you have questions about my presentation, I'd be glad to take those. I think you're mute, Ernie.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Does the committee have any questions of Larry at this time? And I guess not right now. And Larry, you did say that the owner was here.
I know that the architect has signed up to be the speaker.
Okay,
If we can get them connected.
that'd be great.
My name is Dan Roush. I don't know if anybody can hear me. This is my
We
first.
can hear you. Yep.
Awesome. This is my first Landmark Zoom meeting. So thank you for having me here, and I appreciate everyone's help, particularly the staff in working through this project. I am here on behalf of the owner. The owners are lifelong Chicago residents. They have deep Beverly roots, and they bought this property because they want to live in Beverly and make it their home. They are architecture enthusiasts and are excited about the prospect of preserving and improving this property. I'm happy to field any questions at this point, or I can talk in more detail about the process. I'll kind of defer to you at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Roush. Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Roush?
This is Commissioner Zikovich. I just want to say that the presentation was really clear and the drawings are really well done. So just want to commend you on that work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying to start my video, but I cannot do that. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but I'm having some technical difficulties here.
Not a problem. No, I would agree with Commissioner Zikovich. I did have a real quick question just about the new portion of the driveway. It kind of takes a little bit of a bend. Is that because of an existing tree or something?
It is. It's in order to avoid a really terrific tall oak tree at that location. And it's also in order to make a more direct and navigable passage to the back part of the property without sacrificing that tree. So
Great.
that is the purpose of the little jog in the driveway.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And the tree appreciates it as well. Okay, I don't see anybody. Oh, Commissioner Hughes.
I appreciate that you guys really did your homework and keeping with the integrity of the original structure. And honoring, like the other two commissioners have already mentioned, the existing landscape that's already there. And the clarity in your drawings and presentation.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see anybody else wishing to comment on this. With that, I'd like to call for a motion to accept the staff recommendation for this project.
Motion.
Commissioner Zikovich makes the motion. A second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hughes. We'll call in, or do the roll call. Commissioner Osman. Commissioner Osman.
Approved. Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre.
Yes, support.
And I am in support of this as well. The motion passes unanimously. And thank you, Mr. Roush, for everything that you've done, and good luck. And thank the owners for doing such a great project.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. The next project is located at 3324 to 3334 South Prairie in the Calumet Giles Prairie District. This is a proposed new construction of 6 attached row houses. And Larry, you have this one as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the Calumet-Giles Prairie District was designated by City Council in 1988 to recognize the range of architectural styles that characterized residential construction during the late 19th and early 20th century and exhibited distinctive architectural detail and craftsmanship. The subject property is a parcel of vacant land with 135 feet of frontage along Prairie Avenue and 125 feet in depth. The owner proposes to construct 6 new row houses with alley access and detached rear garages. You did receive 2 letters of support, both from the alderman and from the GAPCO community group, and those would have been in your original packet. Just to orient you, what you see, the site is shown outlined in light red, and to the upper left, that's Pilgrim Baptist Church up there. Let's go to the next slide. So as you know, when we evaluate infill construction in a historic district, we ask the applicant to provide contextual exhibits so we can determine whether the overall mass and setbacks and character of that development is consistent with the historic buildings within the district. So in this case, as you can see, the setbacks are compatible. The width of the row houses similarly compatible, and the height is also consistent with the historic heights which you find on the adjacent block. So I won't read all the dimensions. I will spare you that. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, here's another really great exhibit, but I won't spend too much time on it. But this is the photo montage of those adjacent blocks, just to give you a sense of the colors and materials and textures of those buildings within the district. Let's go to the next one. So here's the front elevation of the building, and staff does recommend that the character of this is compatible with the historic row houses in the district, as well as the treatment of the pediments, the use of a mansard roof, the height of the stoops and the treatment of the entrances, and also the sort of protective entrance porches. We recommend that this is in fact compatible with the Giles Calumet Prairie District. Let's move on to the next, where the applicant has provided some detail about the materials that they're proposing. And you can see on the right, there are 2 different shades of face brick. They're proposing the use of a cast stone, both smooth finish and sort of a rough stone textured finish. They're also proposing to use sort of an artificial slate shingles on those mansard roofs on the front of the property. On the secondary elevations and the elevations which are minimally visible, they're proposing to use vinyl clapboard siding. Let's go to the next slide. Here's some renderings of the secondary elevations. On the north side of the property, there's actually an alley. So that part of the building will be somewhat visible, and they're proposing to use finished materials on that side. On the other side, the south side, they're adjacent to some historic row houses, and they're wrapping the finished materials about 7.5 feet down that elevation. And because that gangway is quite narrow, we recommend that they can use the artificial siding for the remainder of that elevation. And obviously the rear of the building, which no one will see, they're using siding there as well. And then the applicants also provided some quite useful renderings from eye level, showing how that building will appear on the street. So we are recommending approval with those basic conditions to view and approve material samples prior to order and installation. That concludes my presentation. If you have questions for me, I know the applicant's architect is here as well, if you have questions for them.
Thank you, Larry. Does the committee have any questions for Larry at this time? If not, let's hear from the applicant, the applicant's architect.
Hi.
Hey, folks.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Alexander Polichuk. I'm architect of record on this project. My company designed it. And we try to match overall character of this district. And because this block has a lot of pieces of row houses. This property has been rezoned about a year ago in order us not ask for any variance or something, and we were able to put row houses to make general perception of the block. Materials are compatible, as Larry said, with materials on the street, and only rear of the building and invisible side we will use hardy board siding or fiberglass siding in order to meet some requirements of developer who is sitting next to me to the left, Tom Boone, and he can answer all your questions regarding townhomes marketing or some other questions you have.
Thank you. Any comments, sir?
Yes.
To the developer.
Yes. No, I'm just happy to get started on another project here in the neighborhood and looking forward to it.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions of the applicant? I don't see anybody right now. The one thing that I will note, or I have a question about, is so if I understand this correctly, the materials that you're using in terms of the brick, it is not utility brick, but it is common brick?
No, it's not utility.
It's not utility, it'll be a modular brick.
Okay.
Finish, and I think one of the comments is that we'll still bring that in for landmarks to approve the finish before we finalize the product.
Because we couldn't provide physical board as of now.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, yeah, my comments, this is actually one of the better looking projects that I've seen on, a lot of vacant property. And the 6 row houses look really nice, so. Okay, no other comments. I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the staff recommendation for this.
Motion.
That's Commissioner Jekovich, and a second.
I second it.
I'm sorry, that was Commissioner Gary?
No, Commissioner Osmond.
Oh, Commissioner Osmond, sorry. Okay.
I think that Gary's hand was raised.
Oh. Commissioner Gary, you're right.
Okay, good. Didn't hear him.
I just have a quick question about just curious, these are just townhomes, right? Like individual townhomes? The type of property, yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
The type of property, are these just townhomes, right?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. There is a motion on the table. That was Commissioner Jekovich and Commissioner Osmond. Commissioner Hughes, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Aguirre?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. The motion carries unanimously. Good luck to you, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the property located at 315 East 35th Street. This is in the Black Metropolis Bronzeville District. This is a proposed reconstruction of the brick and stucco front facade, including window and storefront installations. And Joyce, if you could let us know what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. The building that housed the former Sunset Cafe at 315 East 35th Street, located on the southwest corner of 35th Street and Calumet Avenue, is one of the 9 non-contiguous properties that make up the Black Metropolis Bronzeville District, designated in 1998. The building was first a 1-story auto repair and storage garage constructed in 1909. In 1921, a 2nd story was added and the building became the Sunset Cafe, a jazz club operating in the 1920s and the 30s. In 1937, stucco was applied to the second-story facade in the Art Moderne style for the Grand Terrace Cafe, which operated there until 1950. The building is associated with the nightclubs that established Chicago's reputation as a jazz center in the 1920s and 30s. The Sunset Cafe was home to such legendary figures as Louis Armstrong and Johnny Dodds. Later, as a Grand Terrace Cafe, it was home to Fletcher Henderson, Earl Hines, and the Grand Terrace Orchestra. When the Grand Terrace Cafe moved out, it became an office and then a hardware store. It was during this time period that a storefront system was installed on the first floor. In October 2019, a violation was issued by the Department of Buildings for a parapet wall being out of plumb and for cracking and spalling stucco on the front facade. Another violation was issued for bulging masonry at multiple locations on the side facade. In late March of this year, demolition began on the front facade to address the masonry issues, and a CMU backup wall, steel lintels, and columns were installed, all before a permit was obtained. In early April, Department of Buildings inspected the property and allowed certain structural work to stabilize the building and directed that no further work beyond what was authorized should occur until a building permit is issued. Drawings have been submitted to historic preservation staff. Starting at the top, the second floor facade is proposed to be clad in a smooth white stucco with a new cast stone coping. New double hung windows will be installed to match the size, location, and arrangement based on the historic photograph from the 1950s shown here on the bottom right. The submitted drawings show that 3 ganged double hung windows in the center window opening, and based on historic photographs, staff recommends that that elevation be modified to show that the center window to have 4 gang double hung windows based on that historic photograph. And final elevations and window details, including the sill, will be reviewed and approved by historic preservation staff. The existing storefront, as shown in the photo on the upper left, was salvaged during demolition. After demolition, like I mentioned before, a CMU backup wall was constructed with a masonry opening that matches the size of the existing storefront. The storefront has since been reinstalled in the CMU wall in order to secure the building. Historic preservation staff recommends that the storefront may remain, but that all existing applied film or images on the storefront glass, such as the one shown in the photo in the upper right, should be removed, as glazing should be clear and views into the space should not be obstructed. Enlarged section details of the storefront and replacement sills shall be included in the permit plans for review. Additionally, I'd like to also note that signage has not been reviewed for this property. Staff recommends that any new signage is required to be reviewed by historic preservation staff under a separate sign permit application. The side facade will be repaired by replacing the outer width of the 52-foot wide by 5'8" high area of bulging brick, which is highlighted on the elevation drawing in yellow. And that'll be replaced with new common brick to match the existing in size, color, and texture. The new mortar shall match the existing mortar in size, color, texture, and strength and type. Additionally, the areas of the side facade that are currently painted, indicated with the red circle on the photo on the left, should be removed or repainted to match the color of the stucco on the second floor, and black to match the brick on the first floor. As I mentioned before, the first floor facade utilized actually a black Roman brick articulated with alternating textured brick courses and smooth brick inset courses that emphasize the horizontal lines, as you can see in the historic photograph on the left, which unfortunately the brick was not salvaged during demolition. The proposed replacement brick shall match the historic Roman brick in size, color, texture, and pattern. Sample panels that represent the color and texture of the proposed bricks are shown in the center photo, with one salvaged brick just above the panels for comparison. The panel on the left is the proposed textured brick, and the panel on the right is the proposed smooth brick. Staff is concerned that the proposed textured brick is not acceptable, which is not an acceptable match, and we'd like to review additional samples in order to find a better match. Additionally, a mock-up of the brick coursing, joint size, mortar color, and profile shall be reviewed and approved by historic preservation staff prior to permit approval. Okay. And then lastly, we received a letter of support from the alderman, as well as a letter of approval from the GAP community organization. Both letters were included in your packet. Staff recommends that the committee find that the project will not have an adverse effect and to approve the project with the conditions as I've discussed during the presentation and also summarized here on this slide. That concludes my presentation. The property owner is here if you have any questions for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Does the committee have any questions for Joyce at this time? If not, if we could hear from the applicant, that'd be great. Applicant here?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Hi, my name is John An, and I'm the owner of the building at 315 East 35th Street. I believe Commissioner Miller brought up that the brick is not acceptable. One of the comments. I brought that up with Joyce, and she forwarded me and she forwarded me a resource to obtain more Roman brick. However, I was unsuccessful. I contacted every single supplier of brick in that the resource, Illinois Restoration Resource Directory. I either called them or emailed them and showed them the sample that we need in Roman brick, and was unsuccessful. Roman brick in black is, to find that match is really difficult. The one that I did find, that smooth and coarse texture, that is the only choice that we have right now. I mean, I really did look high and low for that brick. The other, the structure of that, the facade, it was, when I purchased the building 2 years ago, at that time I knew that the facade was really tired and was exhausted, and the lintels were really eroded, and so at the time of purchase I really did want to restore it. And when I received the violation end of last year, I took it upon myself to look for contractors that can do this job properly. And the contractor that I hired, he replaced the structure with 16-inch CMU blocks, filled with concrete and rebar, and the steel. The replacement steel was really much more stronger. It's overbuilt now, so the structure should stand, another 100 years easily. So as far as the Roman brick, if you guys can, if the committee can somehow give me more resources to look into to find a more compatible match.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ron. Commissioner Hughes.
Does this work?
Yep, you're on.
I had a question. Have you all considered or found any product that's significantly darker, just to create the contrast, maybe as an option in lieu of the exact black Roman brick that was used before?
I found a Roman brick that's more compatible. However, it's only smooth and no rough texture.
Okay, well, I think that if you are having a lot of issues with finding the appropriate material, if our staff are not able to identify recommendations for you, then maybe bring them some options, because I think having the color differentiation is just as important as the rough versus smooth texture. And right now, I'm not sure if it's just the screen, but those two bricks that were presented as a sample look very, very close in color.
Yeah, they are the same color. It's just only the texture is different.
Can you go back to the picture so we can see the historic photograph? Am I misunderstanding that we are attempting to emulate or become close to the photograph on the left from the 1950s?
Commissioner, you're correct in that. It's hard to tell. That photo is black and white. My thinking is that just maybe the way that the sun could be hitting the elevation, the textured brick could be absorbing, the light more, and so that's why it's looking darker, as opposed to the smoother brick where it's kind of like reflecting it more.
I see.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen any color photographs, but I would think that the brick would be the same color, just different textures. I am open to reviewing other samples that the property owner could provide for me. I haven't seen the samples in person, but I have discussed this with John, and John, you can send me samples to City Hall, and I can go over there and review them in person and have a better judgment of what this looks like.
And maybe it looks like these photos of the sample right now are in shade. Maybe if we could kind of get them in sunlight next to one another, so we can hopefully see more contrast that's illustrated in the photograph, that would help us with the decision as well.
I agree with that.
Commissioner Geary.
Yeah, I second that comment. Just because the extensive surface that this material will cover, I think it deserves to be further explored, and just so we understand the, from different vantage points and like sunlight condition, there's a lot of exposure here. So it's just really hard. Again, we are all limited to the screen images. So I agree with Commissioner Hughes' suggestion on getting a couple of conditions in which these materials are photographed and documented, so we can understand, how the impact of light and the view that they generate.
Commissioner Osmond.
This was, when it was Ace Hardware Store, this was a very popular Open House Chicago site because the sound stage that exists. What is happening with the preservation of the interior?
Mr. Ahn?
Yeah. When I purchased it from David Myers, David Myers was actually using that stage as his office. And since then, the wall to the stage or the office was removed so that the stage can be exposed to the public now. And the mural, we didn't touch the mural, so it's in plain view of the public. The stage is also fully exposed to the public. WebEZ did a piece on it about a year ago, and also WGN as well. So it's and we have many tours coming through from Chicago Detours that bring in tourists to view the stage.
Terrific, thank you.
And Mr. An, what is the proposed use once this is completed?
Retail space.
Retail space. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The other question I had was in reference to the sourcing of a smooth black Roman brick. That sourcing was provided to you by just staff, is that correct?
Well, no. At first, I inquired at Illinois Brick for Roman brick, and they only gave me what you see there. That what you see is modular brick actually, but it's available in Roman size. And Roman size brick is really scarce. There's not a lot of choices in it. There is one other brick that I do have, and it more matches the original brick. However, we don't have a coarse brick to match the original brick. You know, like the original brick has a flat black kind of look to it. And I do have one that is flat black. However, there's no coarse brick to match. Because we require 2 courses of flat and 2 courses of textured brick.
Okay. Yeah, I guess sourcing has always been kind of an interesting way to and a different approach. I'm always surprised after doing something that I find something better. Yeah, that comes up. Commissioner Hughes, you had your hand up again. Is that?
Yeah, this one is really tough. I do want to recognize though, also with the last project and this one, just recognize and take a moment to thank these owners and developers for putting more attention and time into the reinvestment of the South Side. Both of these properties, this one and the last one, are in my neighborhood. So it's really tough because if the owner has tried very hard to find a material to match and it is not having any luck, I think that we should explore other options, but we do need those options to explore, not just the 2 samples that were submitted in this presentation. But those are my comments. Thank you, John, for the incredible work that you're doing. I think we need to still work with this a little bit before we come to a decision on the brick, but I do want to thank you for your effort and your work.
Okay. Nope, I don't see anybody else with their hand up, unless I'm mistaken. With that, I'd like to call for a motion.
I would like to
go ahead.
So, you know, I spoke with Kevin Stansel and Jeremy in Gapco community, and, you know, they're in favor of that brick that we showed them. You know, if possible, I mean, I really would like to keep this job moving forward. I know I didn't find any other samples. However, I really did try hard. You know, when I couldn't find it, I even asked Joyce, you know, where I could look, and, you know, she provided me a whole directory of Illinois Restoration for landmarks, and I contacted every supplier on their phone, either by phone call and by email. And, you know, this is what I came with. And this Roman size brick, you know, is really scarce. Like I said, if it was modular, you know, there'd be tons of choices.
Sure. Did you look out of state, by the way?
Out of state, yes, of course, yeah. The brick that we're getting is out of state.
Okay. I'd like to put a motion on the table to accept the staff recommendation with a caveat. I'd like for Commissioner Hughes, if you're willing to lead the charge on this, but to work with staff and work with this property owner to come up with an acceptable solution regarding that brick.
Sure, I can't say that I am the most familiar with sources for Roman brick, but I'm definitely willing to work with you, John, and see if there's any other samples or anything that we can come to an agreement on to keep your project moving forward.
And Joyce, you would continue to make sure that this gets put through?
Yeah, absolutely. Continue discussions with the property owner and trying to find the best match that we can in the situation.
Okay, great.
I mean, is it possible? I mean, we have to give somewhere. I mean, if we're willing to take modular brick, I mean, we could find a much closer match.
So the motion on the table is that in regard to the brick, that Commissioner Hughes will take the lead on working with you to figure out a solution with staff on that. The rest of it is to accept the staff recommendations. Otherwise, with the rest of the project. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Osmond?
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Good luck. Thank you, Commissioner Hughes, for your service. And I'm sure you guys will find a solution. Thank you, Mr. Hahn. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next project on the agenda is the property located at 2036 West Haddon. This is the Ukrainian Village District. There's a proposed new dormer and second floor and a rear addition. Emily, you have this one.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the subject property is located mid-block on Haddon Street between Damon and Hoyne. So earlier this year, the applicant reached out to staff for a pre-permit review of a rooftop addition. Next. So in 2005, the commission adopted a dormer policy for the Ukrainian Village District. While the following proposal is similar to the policy guidelines, it differs slightly in ridge height and length of addition. So the building currently has one existing dormer. It's highlighted there in purple on the east elevation. The applicant is proposing to add a second floor addition behind this dormer, stretching approximately 25 feet to the rear of the building, and then construct a matching dormer and addition on the west side. These additions are set behind the dormers, approximately 1'6", meaning that they will be largely hidden from view. The dormer portion of the addition is proposed to be clad in shingle siding to match the existing dormer, and the remainder of the additions are proposed to be wood siding. So the current dormer and the proposed additions are approximately 1 foot below the cottage's existing ridge height. And then the extension has a shallower roof slope, further minimizing visibility. So a digital mock-up was prepared to evaluate the visibility. You can see in red there that it will really only be minimally visible when looking directly down the side yards, will be largely blocked by the existing dormer and the new dormer. You can see on this other side, that's the shape of the new dormer, essentially. So while this proposal differs from the criteria outlined in the Ukrainian Village dormer policy, staff recommends that this proposed addition is minimally visible, consistent with previous approvals, and therefore recommend that it does not have an adverse impact on the property or the village as a whole. A letter of support from Alderman Hopkins was included in your packet. Staff recommends approval with that condition, as I mentioned. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, the architect is here. You're muted, sorry.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions regarding this item? And none. And you said the applicant is here, is that correct?
Architect, yes.
Architect.
Representative.
Okay, great. If you could introduce yourself, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My name is Jacob Hibitsky, and I'm the representative of the owner and the architect for this project. We were trying very hard not to impact the character of a Ukrainian village for this project, working with the staff. And I believe that our proposal is not having a significant impact into the existing Ukrainian village district.
Great. Does the committee have any questions of the applicant? I am seeing none. Therefore, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the staff recommendation for this project.
So moved.
That was Commissioner Hughes, second by Commissioner Jekovich. Call for a roll call. Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Osman?
Yes.
And I am also a yes on this. Thank you very much. Good
Thank you
luck.
very much, committee.
That may have been the fastest one ever.
Let's hope the rest.
I take that as a compliment. Thank you very much.
I think we just lost Chairman.
Let's give him a couple minutes to rejoin. Gianna, can you send him a text?
Maybe Chairman Leone can fill in until he returns.
Let's see.
Oh, there I am. Okay.
Hang on. Was I changed to a?
Yes, Commissioner Wong, you're back in.
Okay, thank you. All right. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Mr. Joyce and Mr. Suster. Did you have a comment to make on this?
Mr. Chairman, how about I do the presentation and then you can grill them mercilessly?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Okay. So we're talking about 2115 West Evergreen in the Wicker Park District. Wicker Park was designated in 1991 and includes excellent examples of residential architecture constructed during 1870 to 1900. Subject property.
Put them on hold. You know,
we can hear you, Brad. Thanks. Subject property is a 3-story brick and stone single-family home built in the Romanesque style circa 1890. The lot has 53 feet of frontage along Evergreen and is 153 feet in depth. In your packets are a letter of support from the alderman as well as the Wicker Park Committee. Here are some photos just to orient you a little bit more to the site. The one on the left is just the front shot. The middle one is the back of the building in the east side yard looking towards the front of the home. And the one to the far right is on the sidewalk, also in the east side yard looking toward the rear of the home. And the photo in the bottom is this one-story rear garage, which we will talk about at length. So, as I mentioned, this is a fairly wide lot. It's considered a double wide lot with a setback of about 20 feet, an east side yard of about 15 feet, and a west side yard of about 3.5 feet. The applicant proposes to construct a contemporary 2-story rear addition to the existing 3-story building. They also propose to construct a 1-story side addition in the east side yard, which will be visible from the public right-of-way. An existing 1-story rear garage is proposed to be demolished and replaced with a new 1-story masonry garage with a roof deck. And you can see that I've tried to color code all these different elements for your easy reference. Let's go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, the applicant is proposing to construct a 1-story addition in the east side yard. It's approximately 16 feet wide and 15 feet in depth. There's currently a door and a stair in this location, which will be removed. The addition is proposed to be set back approximately 66 feet from the front property line. The addition is clad with metal panels at the foundation level and has a glass and metal curtain wall and a standing seam metal roof. A new metal stair is proposed to be located in front of this to provide access to the side yard. The glass is proposed to be clear vision, and the metal cladding is to have a dark, non-reflective finish. There is a first floor deck and railing located behind this side addition, but that side addition will generally screen that from view. So regarding an addition in the side yard, in contrast to a more solid masonry addition, a glass enclosure may be seen as an ancillary structure to the main residence. Similar enclosures, such as greenhouses or conservatories, would not have been out of character for large single-family Victorian homes on substantial lots. Previously, in 2007, the committee approved a side yard addition at a property on North Levitt, and that was similarly situated on a double lot. You can see a photo of that on the left. In this case, we're recommending that the proposed side addition will not adversely affect the architectural character of the building or the district. So the rear additions incorporate 2 irregular pyramidal shaped roofs capped with skylights, and these will be minimally visible from the public right-of-way and are clearly secondary to the historic massing. The design of the rear addition is contemporary, and it utilizes large panes of glass, sliding glass and aluminum doors, vertical wood cladding, and metal railings. The addition connects to the proposed 1-story masonry rear garage through a metal and glass portal. Because the additions are to the rear of the home and will be minimally visible, staff recommends that the massing and the materials be approved as submitted. So as I mentioned, the applicant proposes to demolish that existing 1-story masonry rear garage and replace it with a new 1-story masonry garage of similar footprint size. The district does contain a number of properties which have rear structures, such as coach houses or rear lot homes. Many of these structures embody the same historic and architectural characteristics which define the district and are important in understanding how that area developed over time. At the same time, there are many non-contributing secondary structures which were built outside of the district's period of significance or which have been substantially altered. Evaluation of these structures is done on a case-by-case basis. While no original permit for the garage was found, it's likely that it is original to the building, and we did document it in Sanborn fire insurance maps. However, the height in 1914 was shown as 1.5 stories, and the height in 1950 was shown as 1 story. And in fact, the footprint of the building appears to have been expanded a bit. So because of these changes over time, and because of the difficulty in reversing those changes, or even acknowledging exactly how it's changed, we're recommending that this garage does not have sufficient integrity to be considered a historic structure, and that its demolition will not adversely affect that property or that district. Just as a side note, the garage is also in fairly poor condition structurally, and a report was included in your packet. Let's go to the next slide. As I mentioned, they are proposing to reconstruct a new garage of similar size, this one accommodating a roof deck. They're also proposing to sort of retain and reinstall some of the red face brick on that existing garage, and to basically construct the north elevation of the garage using that historic brick. So let's go to the last one. We are recommending approval of this with a few minor conditions to review and approve the cladding samples with the permit application. So that's all I've got. If you've got questions for me, and as you've seen, the architect and applicant are available as well.
Thank you, Larry. One real quick question. This has gone to any kind of community review and or aldermanic?
It has, and so the Wicker Park Committee did review it and wrote a letter of support, and I believe the alderman also submitted a letter of support.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee have any questions on Larry at this time? If not, now I'm going to ask applicants if they have something to say on this.
No, simply ready to field any questions that you may have.
Okay, great. Does the Commissioner Hughes? You're on mute.
Is this working now?
It is now, yep.
I'm using the space button option. This one was pretty straightforward and clear. It has my support.
Great. And anybody else? Nobody else has any other questions regarding this? The only question I had, sir, was in regard to that deck space. Seems to be, how high up above grade is that?
The main deck is 5'2" to match the existing first floor elevation.
And what's below that then?
I mean, really, there won't be much. It's just to expand the living space of the house. So that will be beneath it. It's just kind of a dead space.
Okay. I may just recommend that you'll have occupants of sorts.
Go to die, right?
Exactly. So you just might want to take that into consideration. But
right.
Okay. Okay. Having no other questions, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the staff recommendations on this.
I motion to accept it.
Second.
Okay. There was Commissioner Osmond, I think, that that had the motion. Commissioner Jakovich with second. Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Gary.
Yes.
And I'm a yes also. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you.
Next property, next item on the agenda is the property located at 600 South Federal in the Printing House Road District. This is a proposed installation of a 15-foot tall insulated acoustical metal panel screen wall to mitigate existing roof mounted equipment noise. And Joyce, you have this one.
Okay. The Borland Building is one of 21 properties that make up the Printing House Row District, designated in 1996. The 8-story building was designed by architect Charles Frost and was built as a series dating from 1910 through 1928. This near block-long building was constructed in 4 phases and is an example of the phase-built structures in the district. The building is currently a data center owned and operated by Digital Realty. Digital Realty is proposing to install an acoustical metal panel screen wall around the existing mechanical equipment at the request of the alderman and local residents of the district in order to reduce equipment noise. In response to these concerns, Digital Realty agreed to install a 15-foot tall screen wall around the existing roof-mounted chillers, as highlighted in yellow in the plan on the right. The screen wall is set back from the parapet 9 foot 4 inches on the north and 11 feet from the east parapet. The screen wall will rise 15 foot 8 inches above the existing parapet and will mitigate the noise levels of the chillers at adjacent buildings located north and east of the subject property. The proposed screen wall is a 4-inch thick fiberglass panel with metal liners. The side facing the street is proposed to be powder coated in a neutral tan color that will make it appear light and less massive, and will create a more uniform aesthetic treatment for the chillers. Visibility studies with views provided were submitted for landmark staff review and are included in your packet. The full extent of the proposed screen wall is apparent from Harrison Street, especially since the building is significantly set back from Harrison Street, as seen in the visibility diagram on the left. Due to the height of the building, visibility of the proposed screen wall is eliminated from vantage points closer to the building along Federal Street, as seen in the visibility study on the right. Staff believes that portions of the screen wall that are visible do not have an adverse impact on the building and are not distracting to the overall historic form of the building. This slide shows current views of the building on the top row and proposed views on the bottom row that include a rendering of the screen wall on the roof. The existing conditions of the Borland Building already include several non-historic penthouses and many visible mechanical units. In addition, the screen wall is required for the property to comply with the city noise ordinance levels. I would also like to note that the proposed screen wall is a reversible element and can be removed. Okay, and finally, the alderman has submitted a letter of support, which is included in your packet. The near South Side Planning Board also submitted a letter of support. Staff recommends that the committee find that the project will not have an adverse effect and approve the project with the following conditions. So the proposed screen wall does not exceed the 15-foot 8 height that is proposed on their drawings. So it shouldn't go above what's on their drawings above the masonry parapet, and that the screen wall color to be tan, which is what they submitted, and to have samples that are provided for final review and approval. The property owner is here to answer any questions that you may have, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Does the committee have any questions of Joyce at this time? Trying to see, nobody has their hand up. You said that the applicant was here?
Yes, he is. Should be John Benetti of Digital Realty.
Okay. Mr. Vanetti? Mr. Vanetti.
I think
Bonetti.
Bonetti
Bonetti.
have a microphone. He is not able to speak. We have Mr. Jeff Miller.
Okay. And
I'm here. This is Jeff Miller. I'm the architect.
Okay. Having a really hard time hearing you on this.
Yeah, I think we're having internet challenges.
Okay, you're a lot better now. Did you have any other comments on regarding this project?
No, we have reached out to the Greater South Loop Alliance, as well as the South Loop neighbors, and have spoken with both the shared drawings, and they have said they have no objection to this. They're in support. And the Harrison Loft neighbors to the north provided a letter of support today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Mr. Bonetti is now has dialed in from phone and he's able to talk.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we were speaking with your architect, Mr. Miller. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think Joyce and Jeffrey explained it really well. Just here for any questions.
Okay. Does the committee have any questions regarding this item? The only question I have, and it's not pertaining to what we're going to approve, but I have been noticing on other buildings that panels continue to, with the high winds that we've been getting lately, can, fly off of these buildings. There was one on the Michigan Avenue Historic District that happened not too long ago. So with the winds that we're seeing these days, I would recommend that those connections really be looked at as you're installing this.
Absolutely. Absolutely
Noted.
agreed.
Yep. With that, I'd like to call for a motion to accept the staff recommendations for this project. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Is that, I'm sorry,
Lynn Osmond, yes.
Commissioner Osmond, and a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jekovich. Do a roll call. Commissioner Hughes? Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Guerra?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, folks. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next project on the agenda is the property located at 1942 South Avers. This is 5 houses on Avers, proposed renovation of existing masonry residence, including rooftop and rear addition, select window replacement, front porch, and a new rear garage. And Joyce, you have this one as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property located at 1942 South Avers is a brick and stone 2-flat that was built in 1894. And this is one of 5 houses included in the 5 houses on Avers District, which was designated in 1994. The building features a limestone facade that is articulated by alternating rusticated and ashlar courses of stone and an elaborate pressed metal cornice. The 3 front windows on the projecting bay on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors will be replaced with new wood windows designed to match the type and configuration shown in the historic photo on the left. The proposed front porch is designed to have a hip roof clad in asphalt shingles supported by decorative wood posts with iron guardrails. Staff recommends that the porch be redesigned to be more compatible with the materials and design based on the historic photograph, and to include features such as a flat roof with tapered wood square column supports and a wood railing and 6-inch square newel posts at grade and on the landing. The existing gable roofline behind the false front mansard will be altered in order to create a 3rd floor living space. Although the shape of the roof will be changed, the height of the ridge will remain the same. The altered roof and the roof over the addition will be clad in asphalt shingles and will not exceed the height or width of the false front. Since the dormers and the roof above the 3rd floor are behind the false front, as you can see in the perspective detail on the top right, they will not negatively impact the primary facade and roof line of the building. The proposed south elevation features 4 small dormers, and the north elevation features 2 larger dormers. The dormers are proposed to be clad in fiber cement siding with a 4-inch lap exposure. Staff recommends that the dormers be clad with shingles that match the roof cladding in order to minimize their visibility, especially on the south elevation where the side yard is very wide, as you can see in the photo in the top left. Material samples for the siding and shingles shall be submitted to historic preservation staff for review and approval. The rear addition is clad with fiber cement siding with a 4-inch lap exposure. Both side elevations as well as the rear elevation are proposed to have a new cornice with an integrated gutter that replicates the design and profile of the existing cornice on the front facade. Since the side and back elevations did not historically have a cornice, staff recommends that the proposed new cornice at the north, south, and west elevations shall be redesigned to be a gutter system with a simpler profile. The proposed one-story garage is located at the rear of the lot as highlighted in yellow on the site plan, and will be accessed by the alley. It will be clad in fiber cement siding with a 4-inch lap exposure with the gable roof and asphalt shingles. Staff feels that the garage is compatible as it is in keeping with the historic size, height, and location of garages in the district, as you can see in the 1896 Sanborn map on the left. Okay, and finally, staff recommends that the committee find the project will not have an adverse effect and to approve the project with conditions as discussed during the presentation and also as summarized here on the slide. That concludes my presentation. The architect is here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Does the committee have any questions of Joyce at this time? Seeing none. The only question I had, again, did this go through neighborhood committee and aldermanic review?
I can have the architect speak to that if they've done any outreach to the aldermen or any of the community groups.
Okay.
The alderman was notified. He did request an acknowledgement letter, which we sent to him. I don't know if he sent that to the city straight, but as I know, there is no community meeting that has been held on this project.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Alba. Would you like to make any other comments regarding this project? Mr. Alba?
No, if anybody has any questions for me.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding this for the applicant? The only question I would have is in regard to the original mansard roof at the front of the building. What is the condition of that right now?
Structurally, it's good. It does need to be re-roofed though.
Okay, is that going to be part of this?
Yes.
Okay, so you're intending on re-roofing that with the asphalt shingles as you do this? Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. No other questions? Then I'll ask for a request motion to approve the staff recommendation for this. Oh, Mr. Alba, do you have any issues with staff recommendations?
No, I actually want to thank Joyce and Larry for all their help from the beginning of this project.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, now I'll call for a staff for a motion.
So moved.
That was Commissioner Hughes that moved it. Was there a second?
A second.
Commissioner Aguirre. Commissioner Jekovich.
Aye.
Commissioner Osmond.
Yeah, ayes.
And I'm a yes as well. So this motion carries unanimously. Good luck, Mr. Alba, and
thank you very much.
Hope this comes out. We're getting there, folks. One more here. This is we've seen this one before. This is a property located at 560 West Fullerton in the Mid-North District. This is a continued review, proposed insertion of a new garage into street-facing elevation and curb cut. And Emily, if you could remind us what happened.
Definitely. So as you all may remember, last month, the commission preliminarily approved a curb cut and garage with the condition that the applicant continue to work with the committee so the garage better aesthetically speak to the historic fabric of the building. Under the design direction of Commissioner Dikovich, the plans were revised and is now back for final review and approval. So the applicant has made a number of modifications to the previously presented proposal to rectify the alignment issues pointed out by the committee. The applicant has shifted the location of the garage door and windows to be directly under that decorative dormer. So it's now directed, they're all in a line together. The middle bay of windows, just as a note, is unable to be shifted to the north as there is an existing interior partition blocking directly under the middle gable dormer. Okay, and then the other change made to the design is the size of the garage. It is providing additional room to accommodate the garbage cans on the street, as you can see there. The applicant has reached out to CDOT regarding their proposal, and preliminary reviews by both CDOT and zoning indicate that there are no issues with the proposed driveway proposal or accompanying curb cut. So staff recommends the committee find that the revised drawings address the outstanding design issues identified by the committee at its meeting. And I know Andreas, the owner, is here. He has a presentation. Did you still want to do that?
If everyone can hear me, yes, I'd love to, if possible.
Okay.
It's just a very quick one. I hope you all can see me as well. Good to see you all again.
Thank you.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Excellent. So first screen, we can pass that. Thank you very much for seeing this. So again, in the last meeting, as Emily mentioned, we are just cleaning up the facade, showing the recycling bins and garbage bins inside, and then providing CDOT statement of the curb cut and that it is possible. Next slide. West facade cleanup, as you saw, we have the original scheme on the left that shows the red line with the unalignment and the cleaned up proposed scheme on the right. Next slide. Also, garage garbage bins placed inside showing the fit as needed. Next slide. And then an email stating directly from my contact, Antonio Derns at the City of Chicago, that it is looks like there's no issue with having a curb cut or a driveway there. So we can reach out to him if there's any issues. And lastly, again, thank you again. I know I'm last of the day, so we'll make it quick. Thank you very much again for reviewing my project.
Thank you, Mr. Mentius. Does the committee have any questions for Emily or for Mr. Mentius?
I would like to.
Commissioner Hughes.
I'm really excited about this because this is what the commission is about.
Thank you.
You know, we had, yes, thank you. You know, last meeting we had, we were a little concerned about the trash cans in that public way being accessible to those residents of that historic district and really beautifying this street. We know we took away a parking space, but I think it's more than accounts for removing the trash cans off the streets, cleaning up that facade, this building being restored. So I just want to thank you. And also,
so good. Yeah,
it is.
Your feedback helped. I was actually going to send Emily from months ago. I'm so happy that she helped me fix the windows on that west facade. So again, thank you for not letting me do the little tiny ones from Crystal Window or whatever it was. So yeah, it's going to look really good. It'll look pretty magnificent.
Yeah, but thank you for working with us and taking the feedback and making the updates and coming to a great compromise on this.
No, yeah, definitely. That's great. If it could be this easy, I want to buy more of these and start.
That's what we're looking for.
Renovating more of them.
That'd be great.
Yeah. No,
and I want to thank Commissioner Jekovich for taking the lead on this and helping out with staff on this. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we didn't have a chance to like talk in person or even meet on a phone call, but everything was done through email and directly with Emily's assistance. So
yeah,
all you commissioners have helped out quite a bit. So
yeah,
you can see some grays in my beard, I think, since I've been not shaving it in the past few months, so a couple months.
We're all there.
Spreading some grays, yeah.
Okay. Having that, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the staff recommendation.
Can I just say what?
Oh yeah, Commissioner Gary.
So,
I'm so sorry. I'm losing you.
Sounds very robotic.
Yeah, Commissioner Gary, are you a robot?
No, I just want to second the. It's okay. It's okay.
Got
you know,
it.
it's fine. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to second everything that has been said because there was a lot of work put into this. And from the staff to Commissioner Jakovich, us discussing thoroughly last time, the applicants. So I just wanted to, acknowledge everyone's cooperation and collaboration on this. I think the results are really quite satisfactory. So yes, acknowledgement and thank you for your willingness and collaboration.
Cool. Yeah, likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I understood there was a motion on the table by Commissioner Hughes, I think.
Yes, there is.
And a second by
I'll second it.
Commissioner
Commissioner
Jakovich.
Sorry, Commissioner.
Okay, we'll do the
third it.
roll call. Commissioner Gary. Commissioner Oz? Oh, well, I'm sorry, Commissioner
Yes.
Gary, you got to say yes. Commissioner Osborne.
Yes.
And I am a yes
Yes.
also.
Thank
The
you,
motion
everyone.
carries unanimously. Congratulations. This has been a great job. Way to end the day. So
Cool.
and
Hopefully it was painful. Thank you for listening to my little presentation. I had to
thank
push
you.
it over the edge because
no,
you know,
you got it. You got
hit
it.
it home.
All right. With that, okay, thank you. That was the last item on the agenda. Does the committee have anything further to add?
I will like to speak.
Yes, Commissioner Hughes.
And this is just on current issues and everything that's going on right now.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Commissioner Wong, for your statement at the beginning of this meeting and your direct address to the Black community. I really appreciate that. I think we're all impacted by what's going on right now, and it's been extremely difficult for me throughout the week and today. So I'm sure you guys saw I was very quiet at the beginning and trying to bring myself to the meeting. But I think I speak for the Black community when I say that right now, today, right now in current events, we are not okay. Our families are being murdered, our neighborhoods are being destroyed. And it's time for the world and our country, everyone to come together and acknowledge that. Throughout our lives, and this is just so you guys know, I know we don't spend a ton of time getting to know each other, but there's a constant mental battle of trauma, but then also being professional and being here with you guys and making these tough decisions and caring about the preservation of our city. But I also care about the preservation of the Black race and my Black community. And it's a constant battle. And so I just wanted to put that out there. Please be mindful. If you guys aren't doing anything right now, you are part of the problem. I'm going on the record to say that. Educate yourselves, educate your children, whatever you can do to help, whether it's reading a book or talking to a colleague, checking on your Black colleagues. Small acts like that would be a great first step in the right direction. And this is not a racial divide problem. This is not even about race anymore. This is about being decent human beings. This is about honoring all life. So I just wanted to close with that and put that out there on the table. Even if we're not speaking up about it, even if your colleagues aren't leading a firm of 1,000+ people, Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, for me, even if your colleagues aren't leading the charge on racial issues within their firm, they are still struggling with this and they still need your support and they still need your attention and acknowledgement. So I just want to put that out there. And I'm sure you guys already know with my background today, sort of how all this is affecting me. And now you know your other Black colleagues as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
Um,
Raphael.
Raphael,
I
please.
really appreciate, Tiara, your comments. Well said. And we're all with you and everybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Gary.
I just want to thank Tiara for sharing. I know that's not easy. I think also for me, it's an opportunity to talk about solidarity and what does that mean. And I completely agree with Commissioner Hughes about one of our communities just doing whatever civic duty means for us, whether it's helping people to get food access or stay protected or just keep peace. So I just want to recognize it takes a lot to come to a meeting and talk about buildings that need to be preserved when we're seeing in front of us or we are in the middle of organizing some other efforts. So I'm with you with that, Tiara, Commissioner Hughes, and I just
I'm losing you, Paula.
Call for civic duty in whatever form that express solidarity, and that has calling for civic duty and solidarity in whatever way that looks in your I think our communities need us so much today. So thank you, Commissioner Hughes, for sharing. I completely second that feeling, and I am really hopeful as well, and that we will get through all this together.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I also wanted to thank you, Tiara, for everything. I grew up in Hyde Park, Kenwood. I went to Kenwood High School before it was the Academy. And I see our neighborhoods, changing very, very quickly. And I love this city. And I love all the people in this city. And we've got to start talking about this, and they're hard conversations. And I do own a firm that I've got to have those tough discussions with everybody in the firm as well. But that's the first step. Just got to talk about it, get it out there, and start to understand each other. The second thing, though, is that, I've talked to Kimberly Dowdell a lot, actually before all of this started, in terms of recruiting and getting more kids of color into the design profession. And Lynn, I know you're doing your part in terms of the stuff the CAC does, but there's got to be a bigger effort, and we've got to do that. So thank you.
Ernie, I agree, and I'm so glad, Tiara, you brought this up. I mean, we spent a lot of time this week talking about not just talking the talk, but how do we walk the walk? I mean, what do we do differently going forward to, embrace change, to embrace inclusivity, and really to make the design profession reflect our nation. And I think design can make such a difference. Design divides or design can bring together. And we have a really strong role here.
Thank you. All right. With that, if nobody else has anything further, I'd like to adjourn this meeting and wish you all safety and love. And thank you for your service to this great city.
Thank you, Ernie.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you. Take care.